And you can submit your questions at any time using the chat. So our goal today is pretty simple, to give you clarity, guidance, and real world insight into what it takes to start a manufacturing company here in Guyana, and also to help you with some common mistakes that you should avoid. Just to introduce our panel for today, we have Mr. Trevor Bassoo, Executive Director of the Ghana National Bureau of Standards. We have Mr. John Edghill. I can unmute you guys. Senior Director of Investment within the Ghana Office for Investment. Mark Singh, who is the co-owner of Maliyah's Kitchen. And of course, Govindra Raghubansi, Executive Director of GMSA. Hi, guys and lady.
Thanks for having us, Nikeshia,
Good
and
afternoon.
good day to all of the attendees.
Hello.
We would also appreciate other panelists if you can have your cameras on just to make it a bit more engaging.
Yeah,
Hi, good afternoon,
I would
everyone.
need some permission to do so. I'm trying to just kind of get it.
Likewise.
Likewise, same issue here.
All right, let's see. Mm, put me on the spot now. So this is interesting. Probably if I make you guys co-hosts. Do you have the option now?
Negative, still requesting.
Okay,
I
one
just
second.
gain access. Thank you.
Yes.
One second.
Special thanks to our panelists as well, taking time out from your busy days to edify everyone on starting a manufacturing company.
Okay, I'm really trying here to get John's camera up, but ooh. All right, one sec. All right, John, you should be able to do so now.
Are
Right.
you seeing is mine up?
Yes.
All right.
Great, great,
Right.
great. All right. As an icebreaker question, I didn't share this question with you guys. So just to break ground a bit, I would like you each to answer what is the most important thing someone should get right when starting a manufacturing business? Just one sentence to get us started. Starting with Govindra.
Would say understand who your buyer is, understand your demand. Is my answer to it.
All right. And Mark?
Mark, I believe you're muted.
Oh. Have your goal and stay focused on your goal. That should be one of the most important thing.
And Trevor.
All right, thanks. So there's so many things that I want to say, but because I'm representing the Ghana National Bureau of Standards, I'll focus on the relevant one there. I'd say to let quality and consistency be the mottos of your business.
Well said. Britnee.
For me, I would say to understand the sector, the major players in the sector. That would be the most important thing when starting a manufacturing business.
Okay, understanding the sector. And finally, John.
Good afternoon, everyone. In relation to this question directly, I would say that you should start your business not because of what you've seen someone else do, but because of an assessment of the market demand. That would be my one sentence.
Okay. All right. So I want us to start at the very beginning. For someone who has an idea, probably got the idea while sitting on the toilet, this is when these ideas come to you. And they want to move into manufacturing. What are the first realistic steps they should take? And I want to hear this from Mark, since he is an entrepreneur, he is a manufacturer in Ghana.
Thanks, Nikeshia. So, what are the first realistic steps they should take? First, they should get their business registered, have it legalized, get the license in order to operate so that there will be no hindrance when you get started. Also, do extensive research. You don't just want to jump into this and then figure out, you know what, hey, too many people doing peppers. Maybe I should do something else. So do your research, see who your competitors are, and see how you can diverse and do something different. Alternatively, I would say they can also utilize these small agro-processors hub that they have. So whatever idea you have, go to these small agro-processors hub, which is free, the government have it there free, and see how it works out for you. And see if this is what you want to do before you actually go and purchase equipment, or you have a little cottage industry and you're trying to make a little change in your home or outside the yard and have that investment. Go to these hub, produce what you need to produce, feel the market, and then you say, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead with this instead of investing and then to figure out that it can't work.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Govindra, I want to ask you, how much planning is enough before starting? I know Mark mentioned research and getting the different licenses and so forth, but how much is actually enough before we actually get into starting a business?
I can share that, as Mark mentioned here, and endorse it, that you need to have some type of, have to have some type of plan done. But there is something in business called analysis paralysis. You end up on the a wormhole of just doing research and then you end up not executing this idea. There are three core things that we've noticed within our membership that can really get you to execute fast if you have a manufacturing business and you move from idea to execution. One is who will buy your product. Again, estimating the demand fit. It can be you can just simply look at products that are important, products that are being consumed more locally in the economy as it's growing. And once you figure out that there will be someone to buy this product, you need to understand basic costing. How much is it going to cost? We can't just say, let me create this product and sell it for this price because that is what it's sold for, imported for. You need to understand the costing. Does it make sense? And the third most important thing that you can realistically do when planning is enough is, do you have a means to sell it? A lot of agro-processors have started selling from their homes and online, producing at home and selling online. They then move to the gradual step up, which is selling at GMC and a few other smaller. But when you start to produce, you don't have to commit really large quantities. As Mark said, there are a lot of these agro-processing facilities around the country that you can begin, and it de-risk yourself in a way. You don't have to commit large equipments. You can simply do a pilot of them. But this is only for agro-processing. Regardless if you're in another sector, such as furniture or any type of wood, you can experiment at home with small batches and again, sell online before you really overcommit to really large capital machinery.
Mhm. Um, Still staying on you, Govindra, I want you to answer what separates manufacturers who successfully scale their business and probably are able to export from those who might remain stuck and still probably producing in their kitchen.
I would say that when they are starting with the intention of growing big, you should keep that in picture from the start. You should, again, start with the end in mind. Your end goal is to export, right? Or at least grow and scale. So some things that you would want to keep in mind is having really good systems. By having good systems, you ensure that when you overcommit to large orders, again, your financials, for example, are in place. Your what was the word I'm looking for? Your supply chain can handle when you take on larger orders. Who is selling you inputs? You also want to ensure that you have consistent quality. This is something Mr. Bassoo can talk about a bit more. As you scale, you want to ensure that quality remains standard and intact to the excellence that you want, even when you're producing 1,000 units all the way up to 1,000,000 units. right? So those are three things to keep in mind. Having consistent quality as you scale, track your costing, and have reliable systems, whether it is your financial systems, whether it is your supply chain, you must have good systems.
And back to you, Mark. I know that you have been able to scale tremendously given these past few years that you've been in business. So, what advice would you say to persons who might be stuck in the rut that they're in?
Uh, Basically, the same 3 points that Govindra had have mentioned here. What happened with some of these manufacturers? They need to have standards incorporated into and have systems incorporated into their business. And there are so many free programs available from SBB. There's lots of training there. GNBS entity also do a whole lot of training. Leave out the training, they have standards that would help their business. And when buyers know that you have standards, they would basically, Guyanese term, shut the eye and purchase because they know they're having something of quality. Now, also another important point is that some manufacturers, they do not want to reinvest their revenue. So you need to reinvest your revenues in order for you to grow, or else you will be stagnant there. And that's one of the things that I have noticed with a few manufacturers how they operate, you know. Instead of buying one equipment, like for example, for our here at Maliyah's Kitchen, every machine we have two of it. Because if any one time something goes down, our business must not be stalled. Right? And in order to have that, you have to invest to ensure you have that consistency, you know. Now, another point also is that, like, let's say, for example, in in my our Maliyah's Kitchen here, a product has skyrocketed. Example, we pepper. We use that for our chicken foot salsa. We started the business when we pepper was $150 to $200 a pint. All right. Now we pepper right now on the market is about $800 a pint. Now you cannot skimp. You will find manufacturers, but because the price raise, they sometimes they raise their price and they cannot compensate for the buyer. So you don't skimp. You understand? And you have to plan ahead. I mean, when you're doing your pricing, not because pepper is $100 today, pepper's gonna be $100 5 years down the line. And that is some of the mistakes that some of these manufacturers make.
Great advice. Great advice. I want to take a break and show you a poll that I had shared with via email to the registrants of this webinar. Now, I know not everyone participated in the poll because we only received 7 responses, but so far we have 71.4% saying they're now exploring the idea of, which stage they're at in terms of their whether to start a manufacturing company, and some said they're registered but not operational. So I would like to ask each of you, what advice would you give to this group specifically? They're now exploring and, probably don't know how to get their feet wet. Trevor?
Um, oh, okay.
Hi, yes, thanks. So to address this particular scenario, I know my fellow panelists addressed this earlier. I believe Govindra in particular, and he spoke about the analysis paralysis. I initially I wanted to advise that one of the key things to do is research. Research is paramount. You have to understand the market that you're plan to enter into. You have to understand the competition. And beyond all of that, you have to have a passion for what you're getting into. This is not in starting business, not just about making money. Of course, you want to make money, but you got to have a passion for what you do. And this is something I usually see in Mark. When I talk to him, I get that feeling, and that's why he's doing so well. But what I would say to this group who are just exploring the idea is that you have to take the next step. And a good start would be to engage stakeholders, more so engage someone who's already operating. And you gotta look out for the naysayers, those who are preventing you who don't want you to join them. But you find someone that you can trust and rely, someone who has tasted some success, and let them provide some mentorship or coaching to you, hold your hand through the initial process. And I must say, as far as I'm aware, agencies like GMSA, among others, help in these areas. And I can say if you come to the GNBS, while our focus is on in this particular group certification training, one of our objective is business development and competitiveness. And as far as possible, we'd be happy to provide guidance on some of the basic, in terms of legal requirements, who you should go to first. And then we have provide training and technical assistance to a number of local businesses, more so SMEs. So we've done this before, and we'd be happy to talk to people too, to let them know what are requirements, what direction they should head in and so forth.
Mhm. John, I want to hear from your perspective, given that Ghana, fastest growing economy in the world. Is this the right time for anyone thinking, aspiring manufacturers to get into this business?
Thanks, Nikesh, for the question, and good afternoon again to all who are listening. Um, for those of you who are not aware, I represent the Guyana Office for Investment, which is the national investment and promotion, as well as export promotion agency of the country. I do want to acknowledge that there are several of my team members on the call. I saw a few of them online. So in case I miss any of your questions or you put any questions in the chat, you can also engage with them. And thank you guys for joining. Nikeshia, certainly it is a very good time for persons to invest in the manufacturing industry of Guyana. And I don't want to speak too long because I want to have direct engagement with some of the panelists who might have some questions. But what you would see, at least in next week, and particularly for those businesses who might be involved in agro-processing, is that their entire expenditure and expense profile would look differently. And that is because the government has now moved to remove corporate taxes for agro-processing as well as agriculture. And that is coming out of course, the 2026 budget, as well as consultation with entities like the GMSA and the wider private sector. So you would be operating in a space that already has several tax incentives that are targeted towards, of course, encouraging the growth of the particular sector. And then, of course, as many persons are aware, the government now is making large investments in the things that have to support the manufacturing industry. So when we're talking about manufacturing, and I know some of the colleagues on the panel have already alluded to some of the main things that they need to do in terms of research and development and so forth. So I would not regurgitate or repeat any of the things that they've said. But in terms of when you're looking at what the macro environment or the political, economic, and social environment has to offer, those are things that you need to consider when you're looking at a manufacturing industry. And for a long time, the number one detriment to Guyana's burgeoning manufacturing industry has been the lack of infrastructure, both digital infrastructure as well as physical infrastructure. And when we look at the physical infrastructure profile, what we can categorize as the number one thing or the top two things, first of all, is energy. And when we talk about energy, we can then talk about the cost of energy and the reliability of energy. And then the other thing on the physical infrastructures is the actual connectivity of our country and the connectivity at our ports in terms of international connectivity. Because at the end of the day, Guyana is a country that has, proud to say, 1 million people now. The end of 2025 census or 2024, the numbers would show about 954,000 people. So I can safely say we're over 1 million people now. We're closer to 500,000 people coming in our country every year and visitors, and we'll continue to grow our visitor arrival numbers. So those are additional sets of people that we can serve as our immediate market. But of course, we want to have a captive market beyond Guyana shores. So let's talk about just the physical infrastructure very quickly. The investments being made in the physical infrastructure to reduce our energy costs. Mark and all the other agro-processors will tell you that if they have a massive machine that is relying on GPL power, and GPL posts a notice that it has to be blackout for 4 hours, 5 hours, they're in shambles. They might have to have persons working a very late shift, then having to pay additional costs, or Mark and his wife might have to get back into the factory or into their kitchens and everything else. And it can cause a lot of downtime. And that has been a major detriment. So that's fixing the reliability of energy, and then also the cost of energy. Guyana currently has, among the Caribbean region, above, in terms of cost profile, it's more expensive than the entire Caribbean region and Latin America in terms of the cost of generating power. So we're paying about 25 or 28 cents per kilowatt hour. We'll be able to bring that down, and we hope to be able to complete the gas to energy power project by the end of this year and be able to reduce our energy costs to 12 cents per kilowatt hour. So you would have a cost profile that constitutes a lower cost for your generating capacity, better reliability of energy, and then if you're involved in the agro-processing end, you would have no corporate taxes, which means that at the end of the day, you're almost keeping all of your profits. Of course, you need to pay income tax to your workers and so forth. But at the end of the day, you would be paying no taxes on your profit that you would make at the end of that particular fiscal period. And then when we talk about the actual connectivity, of course, I can talk for the end of this day about the actual infrastructure that's going on around the country. Whenever someone comes to our shores, they say it looks like a giant construction zone. That's because we're connecting all the regions. We've had the apportioning of several new ferries that would be able to serve our various regions that are in our hinterland, or with Region 1, Region 2, Region 7 as well. So those regions are also benefiting from more cargo space. So for domestic tourism, as well as the domestic manufacturing industry, can be able to sell to those particular regions. We're connecting by land, Regions 3 all the way to Region 7. We're going to connect Regions 8 and 9. Of course, Region 10 all the way into Region 9 through the limit to Maboro, and Maboro to Kupakari crossing, going all the way into Brazil. So you would be able to drive literally all across the country and be able to have connectivity. We're going to have 4-lane road going all the way to Molson Creek, and then ultimately a bridge across Suriname. So then you have to look at these additional markets. And that's what the connectivity, in terms of the physical infrastructure, will allow. We're going to build out a new port in Parica that would allow for regional cargo to be able to go into places like Trinidad and Barbados and so forth. But I think I've spoken a little too long, but just to answer the question quite pointedly, now is the best time, because you don't want to come in, again, like Mark alluded to, you don't want to start your business when costs have risen. I'm sure many persons would say no, that they wish they had bought a piece of land before, bought a property before, because after the development takes place, property value increases, and then the cost for allocating or the cost for investing in those particular things that might be needed, the other infrastructure, can be more costly. So now is the right time.
Thank you, John. I know for many people, when they think of starting a business, the first thing they want to do or they need to do is register. So right now I want to call on Britnee to just tell us a bit about some of the key legal steps to properly register a manufacturing business, not just agro-processing business, but it can be chemicals, pharmaceuticals, garments, textiles, furniture making, any type of manufacturing company there is.
Hey, thank you for that question. So indeed, the first thing that you need to do is decide what type of business you want to have. Most persons would normally choose each sole trader structure or the partnership structure, which can be done at the deeds and commercial registry, opposed to the company structure. The next step is, of course, have your GRA and NIS compliances in order, because that's very important for the current business environment that we're in. In terms of chemicals, depending on the type of business that you have, for chemicals, from either EPA or also get your permit from this other place that
The Food and
I
Drugs
can't.
Department, the Food and Drug
PTCCB,
Department,
food,
as
yes.
well as the Food and Drug Department for the sale and
Mhm.
import of certain commodities as well. Yes, go ahead, Britnee.
Thank you for that addition, John. Yes, so definitely you can have also need your manufacturer's permits, which also from Food and Drug, and again, Food and Drug plays a big part in terms of manufacturing your business, in terms of registering your business, in the manufacturing industry. And of course, you would have, if you're doing a food business, your food handler's permit, and of course, your necessary sanitation certificates in that regard.
Trevor, at what stage should businesses engage GNBS?
It's a good question. What we have found over the years is that many times we're going to businesses and then they recognize that there is a need to register. And at that juncture, they're registering, which many times pose concerns for them and issues. Ideally, you would want to come to the GNBS and seek consultation to begin with before you even start your business. But you want to register with the GNBS at the start of your business for a couple of reasons. And let me say, the GNBS is one of many agencies that monitor products and services across the country. GNBS in particular monitors 17 categories of products, right? And all businesses or companies that manufacture, import, deals, or resell those products are required to be registered with us. Now, it's not a big fancy thing. It's just a matter of providing basic information to the GNBS, which includes your business registration name and the type of products that you are selling. And once you have a registration, of course, you're free to proceed and whether it's manufacture, sell, or distribute those products. So you want to do that early, so there's no restriction. And I tell you why you want to do it early. Because let's use the example of importers who are bringing in cell phones to sell. Just use that as a scenario. Now, cell phones in particular, apart from registering your business, an importer of cell phone would be required to get a permit to sell those cell phones. That's one of 5 different products that requires permit, right? There are a couple others like tires, jewelry, furniture, electrical fittings, and equipment. And if you have those products on premises and you have not met the minimum requirements, which include proper labeling, those equipment, well, cell phones in this particular case, must be properly labeled, whether it's new, whether it's refurbished, and other important information. Warranty should be down there, among other things. Of course, all this has to be in English. Now, if that is not there on your products, then those products could be placed on hold. They can be seized, and in many cases, you can be fined. So it is advisable before you start importation or before you start manufacturing, you should contact the GNBS for guidance on the registration and get your business registered with us. I can go further to state what are those 17 categories of food, but I don't want to take up time from other discussion. So I want to encourage those of you who are on here to visit the website. It is gnbsgy.org, and you will find the information I'm talking about. You just visit it, click on product compliance, and you will see that information, among others.
Thank you for that. I think that's a step a lot of manufacturers they miss and probably would hear about it later on, probably a year or two into operation. But I like that you mentioned that this should be one of the first agencies persons manufacturers go to. So thank you, Trevor. Just looking at our chat, we received a question from Clevon. So I want to ask John this. Are there any tax incentives currently available for manufacturers, especially new manufacturers?
Thanks for the question, and let me give the short answer and the long answer. The short answer is that yes, there are tax incentives and other fiscal concessions available for manufacturers. And we could look at this through two different lenses. Firstly, we could look at the inputs or the raw materials that are needed for manufacturing. That's one lens we can look at it as. And then we can look at the second lens, which is the more capital intensive items, the equipment, and the machinery. So there's currently a particular protocol in place, a framework in place for manufacturers to benefit from the first lens that I talked about, accessing reduced duty or reduced taxes for the inputs that they would need to purchase on a month-to-month or weekly basis to be consumed as part of the operation. So you might have your machines, but you might need to import flour, you might need to import certain ingredients or certain things, and there's a framework in place for that. That framework is governed directly through the Guyana Revenue Authority, which of course is our tax body. There is a one-page form or document that is listed on GRA's website that speaks to it. If you type in right now manufactured inputs GRA, I'm sure you'd find it in Google, but I'll give you a little brief as to how the process works. You would have to write to the Commissioner General, who is the head of the Guyana Revenue Authority, indicating maybe a list of items as raw materials that you would want to import. The Commissioner General, through his officers, would have to conduct a verification exercise to of course, verify that you are a manufacturing entity, and you would have to become an approved manufacturer under the purposes of the Guyana Revenue Authority, and then they would adjudicate and allow you going forward to be able to import those particular items. That's giving you the very short form of the inputs. And then as it relates to capital equipment, that is where the Guyana Office of Investment plays a direct role. We've worked with several manufacturers, of course, many of them being members of the Guyana Manufacturing and Services Association, and we tend to capture just the capital equipment on that particular investment agreement or the documents and processes that we go through. So, of course, we'd want to ensure businesses have their compliances, ensuring that they are honoring all their statutory obligations, they're paying their taxes, they're paying their social security for their staff, and of course, they are properly registered. We want to ensure they have all their key licenses that Britnee alluded to earlier, the EPA and all the other licenses that are needed. And we would also want to ensure that they have sufficient source of financing to be able to execute the project. So in such a case, we'd be able to draft what is called an investment agreement. Again, GRA forms part of this particular process, but ultimately it's signed by the minister responsible for finance, which we all know in our country to be Dr. Ashley Singh. And once that agreement is in place, it becomes an agreement in place between the government of Guyana and that particular manufacturing entity, whether new or whether an expanding entity. And we've done it with medium-sized businesses, smaller businesses, and large-scale businesses, many of them who you would know, but I would not call any particular company's names today. So there are a whole gamut of incentives in place, and we tend to capture, like I mentioned, the machinery and equipment from the GoInvest lens, and then on the input and raw materials, that is captured through a special regime through the Guyana Revenue Authority directly. I hope I sufficiently answered that question.
Yes, but I also want to ask you, John, if persons need more information from GoInvest, can they just pop into the office or do they have
Oh,
to make an
100%.
appointment?
No, well, while we would very soon, I'm sure, join the Ministry of Public Service and Government Efficiency. As you know, they have a scheduling app that they are currently pioneering and piloting. as part of the whole government apparatus. We do accept walk-ins. In fact, we have several walk-ins today, and my team is always there, including at lunch. We don't close at lunch. So if you want to take your lunch to come across, we would be very pleased to have someone meet with you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
I want to add something to what John just said too. I find the GoInvest website really useful in terms of listing out the incentives, and they also have an AI that summarizes everything for you. So for the person who would have asked the question, rather than it's obviously useful to do a physical meeting, but if you're just on a crunch for time and need an overview, the GoInvest website is one of the most useful tools you can use.
Thanks, Govindra, for that plug. I think it's better not coming from me.
All right, so I want to show you guys, go back to the poll and show you another question that we asked. And this one, it is, what is your biggest challenge right now? The majority said financing. Others, they said registration and approvals, operations and compliance, and market access. But with the majority saying financing, I want to turn to Britnee. Britnee, I know you guys do assist a lot of SMEs with financing, whether it's grants, loans, special assistance, and so forth. So I'd like you to share some of those with us.
Well, financing is one of the biggest factors in scaling any business, starting any business, or any additional service that you want to add to your business. Currently, the Small Business Bureau is not offering any grants, but grants are available through the Ministry of Human and Social Security through the WIIN program, which recently disbursed 84 grants, 84 grants at 300,000 each. We do have the loan guarantee program at the Small Business Bureau, which offers a 6% interest rate through partnering institutions, that is Republic Bank and GBTI. Now, the purpose of this product is to reduce the collateral requirement. Let's say, for instance, somebody comes to borrow, say, $1 million. Traditionally, if they were to go to a bank, they would be required to provide a title document or a transfer document to borrow that amount. Through the loan guarantee program, the first thing that SBB does is to stand guarantor for our clients at a rate of 40%, which means that SBB will cover 400,000 of that $1 million. And the client will have to find the remainder of that amount, which would amount to 600,000. So the client would only need to find collateral coverage for the remaining amount. And I know that collateral is a big hindrance to the financing for small and medium-sized businesses, especially those in manufacturing. And if anyone was watching the budget last night, when the Minister of Tourism, Ministry of Commerce would have clarified, the bank that is coming, the development bank, will provide up to $3 million collateral free. So while the loan guarantee program does offer you a 6% interest rate, and there is still a collateral requirement for that. We also have our loan disability program. Most persons may not be aware of it. It offers up to $500,000 for persons living with disability. We do this program in collaboration with the Ministry of Human and Social Security. Entrepreneurs who might be disabled through that program, we do not, it is zero interest and zero collateral. So persons coming through that program would not be required to have any collateral and would not be required to repay any interest. They just repay the principal of what they would have borrowed, which is $500,000. The payment for that is about $20,000 to $25,000 a month, and they have up to 4 years to pay that back under our financing options that are currently available.
What would make a business more likely to qualify for this type of funding? Because I know, of course, you must have your registrations in order. You can't just come without anything.
Okay, so most likely, if you're going to think about financing, the first thing you need to have in order is your records. We need to see your cash flow. So most likely, we need to have sales records. Most businesses underestimate the importance of the administrative part of doing this, which is having your records in order, having your bills in order. How does the income flow? Because the reality of it is, in order to qualify for funding, you have to meet minimum requirements. And the minimum requirements, while there is collateral involved, is also to have a business plan, is also to have a cash flow statement. So So understanding why we need certain documents in our business and keeping those documents up to date is very, very important for accessing funding, because a lot of businesses may, oh, I just went to let's say you're doing a business like Mark, where you're producing salsa and those other items. You would have to, oh, I went to the market, I just went to buy $500 this. No, it's a business expense. It needs to be recorded as a business expense, and so ensuring that you meet those requirements starts first with putting your business systems in terms of your administrative functions and documents in order.
Great. Um, Given that you deal with many of our SMEs firsthand, what are some common mistakes that you've seen applicants make while trying to apply for funding?
Well, first, again, come back to records. Most persons, they don't have, most businesses, the owners start with an idea and they start with being passionate, but entrepreneurship is a skill. Persons may not understand the need for certain systems and documents that are recorded in the business. So the common mistake when most persons apply is they don't even have a plan. Most persons don't have a monthly budget. So now they say, oh, I can afford $70,000. I can afford $60,000 extra at the end of the month. But the reality is that in their minds they can afford it, but they haven't really assessed if the business can comfortably afford it. And the economy is in a state where the business sector is wide open, the manufacturing sector is wide open. There is so many opportunities in those sectors for persons to enter and to grow and have a lot of startup businesses. But the common mistakes definitely is record keeping and financial management.
Mm-hmm. Govindra, I want to hear your views on this. And given that you are also an economist, about some ways that businesses are more likely to qualify for funding, probably not with SBB, but probably with a bank. What are your views on this?
All right. Britnee mentioned some very key points. Uh, was it being prepared and having a plan is obviously the key to success. I mean, it's a verb as old as time. You're prepared, you're more likely to be successful. Funders look for this here because it shows credibility. Now, the SBB and other ministries have a lot of grant programs, but any successful business that wants to grow and scale would not be dependent on grant funding forever. So you would need to tap into that commercial funding, maybe private funding. And this can only happen if you have, again, your financial projections and you keep your records. But we live in a modern time in which there are a lot of software that you can use as well. Not because you're a small business means that you have to operate like a small business. You have to operate like how the medium and large businesses are. QuickBooks are very easy software you can use and they generate reports for you. And it's industry best practice when you're doing these reports to reconcile quarterly. It allows for the end of year audits and submission of your taxes. So not just having your financial projections, perhaps being more modern and implementing accounting information, EIS software, accounting information software. Secondly, keeping your records is one thing, but another big issue is commingling of finance. Well, what does commingling mean? It's when your business funds are being put into your personal bank account. You find that this is where a lot of businesses, despite having a lot of cash flow and despite keeping the records, when the business doesn't have that history with a commercial bank, that the cash flow is coming to the business itself rather than the individual, it becomes a problem. So from the get-go, you should establish a separate business account. And it's not the most difficult thing to do with any commercial bank. Some other things that were highlighted earlier is strong commitment from the owner. A lot of times businesses are all ideas, they're visions. So if there is that commitment from the owner too, depending on the nature of funding, a commercial bank may be less likely, but there are other types of funding that are out there. There is institutions like the IDB, which provide funding for businesses who may have a bit more of a vision. There are also other legislations that have been passed, such as the security interest in movable property, which collateral may be an issue, but it's something if you have your business plans and you're more prepared. These are all avenues of funding you can tap into rather than grant funding. And one more thing I'd like to be more on is, again, having your systems, having your financial software, having a clear understanding of your market, being compliant, commitment from the owner. All of those are systems that small businesses should adopt as they graduate into medium and large.
Mark, I want to bring you in here because I know you received funding from the Economic Development Accelerator, which is a US aid funded program. So what advice would you give in terms of financing to the attendees here?
All right. So I've gotten uh the EDA program is, as you said, is a USAID funded. So before you can actually receive funding from them, as Govindra had stated, you must have some sort of records. And as manufacturers, if you're gonna go in, start your manufacturing business, you need to have records. You need to separate your personal finance from business finance. You cannot mix that up. It's very important. One of the reasons is when they were doing the transfer, they don't want to transfer the money to my name, to my wife's name. It have to goes to the business name because you're using these funds for the business. So it's important. Time and time again, other agencies is gonna they have these grants shared out, and most of the times they want to ensure that the money is used what is intended for. So QuickBooks Online is very cheap, $19 a month. And that there alone can do most, if not all of your accounting, your input and your output. So that can generate whatever reports you want. So you can actually show, you can have 2024 records versus 2025. And you can go to anybody and show them also, hey, last year I had revenue of for the first 6 months I had $10 million. This is 2026. I'm just in March and I have $8 million. So I need some money to borrow to do whatever, to scale. So that will bring a lot of benefit. It says a lot, but go in and sit with someone and say, hey, I need $10 million. Last year I sell a lot of stuff, you know, $20 million. Okay, where is the proof? Where is the record? And it's also good again because if you don't have record, I mean, we have been keeping records since we started in 2021. And right now we can approach the bank and say, hey, I need $10 million. I've tested it and it worked. So record keeping is very important. Separation of personal and business is very important. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark, for that. I'm going to share the last poll that we had. And that one asks, which area do you need the most guidance on? The majority said funding and incentives. I think that's a big thing, but I think with the developmental bank coming on stream, hopefully it will help in regards to that. Other persons mentioned scaling and growth, legal registration, and operations and standards. So back to the panel. I'd like to ask each of you, but in your own specific area. So I'm going to start with Trevor in terms of compliance. What is one mistake you see new manufacturers make, and how can it be avoided with regards to compliance and standards? And also give us a piece of advice for someone starting in manufacturing today.
All right. Thanks for that, Nikesha. So, as mentioned earlier, one of the biggest mistakes that is made by manufacturers or any business whatsoever is the timing in which they register with the relevant authorities. A lot of people start business and they go with the flow. And as they start to grow, they realize that they have to meet certain requirements, whether it is to export or to engage even local resellers like supermarkets and so forth. So I do want to encourage new manufacturers and those who may not have been registered as yet to engage the relevant authorities. And these authorities are wide-ranging, fortunate or unfortunate. They're entities like ourselves, Guyana National Bureau of Standards. Their entity, you have the Food and Drug Department, which overlook food products and pharmaceuticals. You have Pesticides and Toxic Board. You have other agencies on the Ministry of Agriculture. Engage these entities. And if you don't know where to go, if you ask any one of those, they will point you in the right direction. I must say that GNBS is currently in the process of developing a national quality infrastructure portal, which we don't hold me on the timeline, but I believe we'll be making this live Friday coming, and it can be accessed through the GNBS website. And if you go to that portal will list the various monitoring and regulatory agencies that you should contact should you venture into manufacturing. And it's done very easily. You can either type the agency name or you can type the product that you're looking to get involved with, produce or deliver, and it will point you in the right direction. So I encourage persons to check out that national quality portal. But apart from that, I do want to use this opportunity to talk about standards, because standards play a critical role in the success of businesses and more so manufacturers. Now, currently there are over 600 standards that are available on the GNBS standards portal. And that portal, let me just say, the standards portal is different from the website. The standard portal is gnbsgui.com. Had time permit, I would have shared it here and walk you through the process, but it's very simple. Just visit it, gnbsgui.com, and you click on standards and just type in the product that you intend to manufacture. Let's say if you want to do like pepper sauce or something of that effect, you type sauces and it will bring up the relevant standards. It will show you the cost of that standard. It will give you a synopsis of that standard. So I encourage persons to visit our site and get it. Now, there are tons of standards, but I also want to encourage new manufacturers or micro and small businesses to consider the GYS 901 standards, which is very relevant for SMSCs. It's a quality management system standard. And if you adopt that standard, it takes you a long way because it focuses on continual improvement, on quality, on consistency, and more importantly, it focuses on customer satisfaction and customer service. Of course, GNBS provides technical assistance, training, and certification to the standards. So you can contact my team here and we'd be happy to walk you through the process, do an assessment of your business, and give you guidance.
Yeah, I did pull up the website here. I'm just going through it, sharing it with you guys. So, guys, that website again,
Great.
gnbsgui.com, and you can check out all of the code of practice for your business so you can all be compliant. Thank you, Trevor, for sharing that with us.
But thank you for sharing the screen.
Yes, sure. All right. John, your perspective now on in terms of what common mistakes you see manufacturers make in your field and how can they correct this moving forward?
Sure, and thanks again for the question. I think the biggest pitfall that we see when persons come to interface with the Office for Investment is that most persons would do all they have to do. And then when the items arrive in Guyana and GRA or the broker tells them they have to pay a specific amount of taxes and duty, then they come to us trying to get those duties and taxes removed. But we would need to be informed prior, and we would prefer even before you make a singular purchase. So essentially, like I outlaid before, when you're going to get the taxes removed, you need to have an agreement or a framework in place. It cannot be retroactive or subsequent to your items arriving in Port Georgetown or in Guyana. So I noticed this pattern where persons they want to get involved and they're moving fast, or maybe they have engagements overseas, they travel, someone is selling all their business overseas, they're selling them equipment, they're getting it at a negotiation or an auction, and they just want to go fast sometimes. But you would not be legally permissible to have any waivers of taxes and duties if those frameworks have not been in place and if you don't have an active agreement. So then, of course, we would not be able to facilitate your investment with the applicable removal of those duties and taxes that might still be included as part of the operation. I just wanted to make one addition to the conversation that went before as it relates to access to finance and financing and so forth. Your credit rating is still very important. There's a company called Everydata that tracks on behalf of various financial institutions all of your credit interactions, how fast you're able to pay off, whether you're being delinquent with your payments, and that includes courts, that includes your utility services, and so forth. So an entire ecosystem is being built up, an entire record and database is being built up of you as an individual. Of course, using your taxpayer identification number, your bank accounts, and so forth, but it's being all integrated to you as an individual credit user. And they would then furnish those pieces of information to the bank. So I'm sure if any of you have gone to the bank for a mortgage or a business loan before, they would have as one of the charges a fee to pay for a credit rating. Everydata now provides at least once per year a free credit report that you can access online. So that would allow you to see your standing. But it's very important that you, of course, you're honoring your payments on time. You're not shortchanging any of your business relations as it relates to whether you do business with any credit offerer, whether it's a bank or a non-bank financial institution. Please ensure that your credit information is up to date, because you might come with the best business plan in the world, but if people see that you have a track record of not paying off loans or not paying off a credit facility that was in place for you, then no bank in their rightful mind would want to offer those things to you. All right, thanks.
Thank you, John, for bringing that to our attention. I mean, I recently checked my reports, and they also include your utility bills. So if you pay your utility bills late,
Yeah.
that will also affect your score. So thank you for bringing that up. Also a big common mistake a lot of people fail to remember or fail to adhere to paying on time. Britnee, I know we spoke about the mistakes persons would make in terms of when they're looking for funding, but I know SVB, you guys are involved in many other things apart from funding. So let us know, how can they correct, what are some common mistakes and how can they correct that?
Well, just go back to the compliance. I believe the compliance issue that we have in Guyana is more of a traditional cultural mindset. Only recently, small businesses, we had a couple of videos out with our CEO and DCO talking about small businesses that do not realize that generally that they don't have to pay taxes only from a certain threshold. So we have this fear of these small business owner has a fear of, I may not be able to afford it. And the reality is that even when you lapse in your taxes and to become compliant, GRA actually you can ask them for a payment plan to pay off the amount that you owe and to start paying from that point forward. NIS can be helpful too. Even here, we try to access our services. Actually, you would have to be compliant, GRA and NIS compliant, to access our services such as sponsorships. We recently would have sponsored 11 persons to go to the AgroFest, and those persons would have had to be compliant and would have to be registered clients with us. So a lot of the pitfall that in terms of compliance is that persons are afraid of the amount that they have to pay. Persons may not realize, but the reality is that compliance is the cost of doing business in Guyana. You have to pay your NIS, you have to pay your GRA, and of course, if you're operating in the manufacturing sector, these licenses from the Food and Drug are yearly renewable licenses that are just a part of the cost of doing business. So I just want to echo one of the sentiments one of my colleagues made when we were talking earlier. You need to research the sector, research what is going on, research, understand the costs of operating in that sector, and not be naive or the cost catch you by surprise and say, oh, every year I got to say 6,000. You should know going in every year, you should, the total cost of operating the business to stay compliant.
Mm-hmm. Mark, how about you? Real experience right now.
But repeat the question.
I mean, based on your experience, your lived experience as an entrepreneur, tell us about a common mistake you probably made and, how you resolved it starting out.
One of the, I mean, for us when we started, we had both feet in. We didn't have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. So we register our business, open a business bank account because some suppliers do not pay you, write a check in your name or my wife's name. They want to write a check into Maliyah's kitchen name. So with the experience I had prior, we did almost everything with the exception of GNBS. GNBS, we did not tap into them, and they normally would keep calling you very regular. I was called probably in 8 months before I actually did a made in Guyana certification mark, and it is very, very good. We personally had this thing about GNBS being this, elite, and they only deal with certain businesses. But that was just my understanding, and it was totally wrong. It was totally wrong because when you actually get to interact with GNBS, man, I think they're one of the bodies that are have a listening ear. I never see a GNBS staff get vexed. Never. None of them mouth never sour like some other semi-autonomous body and other government agency. They're
Mark, I don't think I
very
ever saw
good.
any of my stuff. So,
No, I come into GoInvest just now. I mean, GoInvest too. I mean, you guys are
John, why did you
popular.
do that? I was enjoying this testimony.
no, no, no.
And Mark, thank you very much for that. I will
Oh,
convey
but
this
well,
to the
indeed.
staff.
Yes, indeed.
No,
Indeed.
anywhere I go and I speak to other agro processors or manufacturers, I encourage them, hey, link with GNBS because they also have this thing about GNBS being hard to work with. I mean, we are one of the first companies who have the GYS 901, and we thought it was hard. It was difficult, but it is not difficult. You want to grow, you need to do these things. It's an investment. It may look tedious and so much right now, but trust me, from past experience, the investment that we have made, we can see because where we were in 2020 and where we are now in 2026, it's big. We have outgrown our space in a space of months, in a time of months. Right now, I can't wait for this hub to be initiated and start to build so we can go automated. I have inquiries from the Caribbean to supply 70 and 80,000 packs of mitai. I cannot fulfill that. Why? Space. So this initiative what the government is taking now, I'm really excited and can't wait. As we speak here today, I'm currently doing a draft of what the facility we envision it to look like with the machines and all these kind of things. So also when the development bank comes in, I want to have everything right. So when you go in there, you don't have, oh, you don't have this, you don't have that. No, you have to prepare yourself. And again, as manufacturers or somebody who want to start, this is an investment that you have to make. If you don't do this, you're gonna be stuck exactly where you want to be. So coming back to the question, GNBS is the only place that I had this little barrier with. But otherwise, that we did our research, we did everything. Many places that we went, the first thing they said, I give you an example. I called a supplier too, Matai. So he says, sir, we're manufacturing this product, chicken foot, mitai, fudge. He's like, um, do you have food and drugs license? Yes, sir. Where is it? Here is it. Is your business registered? Do you have a bank account? I had everything. So they cannot turn you away. You go prepare. And you go prepare not just to talk, you walk with samples and be prepared to leave that sample. Don't sell them it, leave it. Let them experience it. Let them build 9 out of 10 times when we do this, we have them hooked. We have them hooked. So you have to want, you have to love what you do and give it your all. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Mark. Great advice. Govindra, to end things, close things up, I want you to share the big picture here, in terms of mistakes, how we're resolving them, how we're moving forward to getting a manufacturing company here in Guyana.
Throw a big one on me there, Nikesha. All right, let's start just ending off where Mark left. Something that is very common in Guyana is industries compete a lot. It's a lot of repetition with a lot of sectors. Mark, for example, is in Mitai. He's not the first Mitai company. He's not the first chicken food business, right? A mistake that we've noticed within GMSA and the wider Guyana is that of not effectively branding, right? So there's just my quick input on this question before I move into the big picture. Uh, I would say that Guyana is at a very interesting place right now. We have, as you started saying, rapid economic growth, some of the fastest in the world still. Our population too is increasing. There is major infrastructure development, as John highlighted, and domestic demand is just it is just increasing. For new manufacturers, the first poll that we would have brought up on the screen, it said a lot of you are just looking at ideas. And what I want to leave with you is that to start looking at your ideas, really validate it, do your business planning. And I'm going to give you some sectors that we've been looking at that are growing, and this might answer the first question that was shared as well. Agro-processing. That is a growing sector. It will continue to grow because for the reasons I listed, you want to supply a growing industry. Oil and gas is growing, construction is growing, hospitality, services, they've all created a strong demand for agro-processing. Some specific products can include sauces and seasoning, snacks, frozen foods, beverages, condiments. Again, these are very competitive sector, but I started by saying branding is important, referencing Maliyah's kitchen again. Another thing is construction and home products. In terms of manufacturing, there's scope in furniture, cabinetry, doors, fixtures. These are all things that have been given direct support, especially in the last budget. You may or may not know that VAT on locally made manufactured products have been removed, and this was something that was directly tabled by the GMSA. Something else that would be a good growing sector for those that are exploring is packaging and labeling. This sector grows with every other sector, whether you're buying pepper sauce or frozen foods or a furniture, a door, it all comes with some type of labeling and packaging. Some other sectors that will grow as well, cleaning, personal care products. This includes detergents, disinfectants, cosmetics. All of those are manufacturing. Um, and something that is very much overlooked too is assembly of items. I can share an example. I grew up recognizing a lot of giling motorbikes on the road, but I'm sure a lot of you know when you look on the road, you're seeing luminous motorcycles. What they're doing, they are bringing in that parts and they're assembling it right here. That is considered manufacturing. And again, with the right advertising, with the right branding, your product can take off. So I'm touching on the questions as I go along. This here are some areas, and where does the GMSA come in all of this? The association plays multiple roles in being a private sector manufacturing business support organization. Um, for our members currently, we connect members to agencies and regulators. Um, GNBS being a key agency that we work with, SBB, GoInvest, and Mark being a small business, and a few other of our members who are on here. We provide training and webinars and networking opportunities like this one. We'll be continuing it. We realize that there's a big gap in the market for these type of initiatives. We also promote local products. For those who don't know, we have the Uncapped Marketplace, which is a physical expo. We also have a portal which you can order online, some of the online products, and it's delivered to you. We advocate for policies. As I mentioned, we can effectively have your voices heard in terms of raising these issues with ministries, with relevant government agencies. We also offer many more services, such as helping our members refine their plans when they come with us if they ask. So the big part of this is that there's a lot of growth happening in manufacturing, and you have to pay attention to the key players. A lot of them are online here, and GMSA is one of them. I will drop in the chat our membership link for those who have enjoyed this webinar so far and would just like to know more and connect with the organization. Again, some benefits would be you have access to information like this, guidance. And again, it's access to information is key. There's a lot of news going on, but you need to filter what's important to you and be a part of initiatives like these, which would be beneficial to yourself and your business. I hope I touched on a big picture there, and there's enough input from me.
Thanks, Govindra. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. I'll allow you guys to unmute yourself if you need to ask anyone on the panelists any questions. Do we have any questions?
Was looking for the hand raising option, but I can't seem to get it properly. Good afternoon.
Good
Am I free to
afternoon.
ask the question?
Go right ahead.
Hi guys, Ron from the center. I got a series of questions, but I'm gonna ask them one by one depending on responses. Let me first say thank you to the panel. I think you guys did a good job as it relates to demystifying this sector, and I'm sure the audience enjoyed it. First question is for Govindra. Um, as it relates to wood-based entrepreneurs and wood-based businesses, I just wanted to speak a little bit as it relates to the overlap, how the wood sector overlap with the forestry sector. And depending on your answer, I got questions for Mr. GNBS and Mr. GoInvest.
I didn't get how the wood sector overlaps with the forestry.
The wood sector overlaps with the manufacturing sector,
Okay, all right.
in Guyana
All right.
specifically.
All right. Well, I can share that, as we all may know, wood before oil and gas has been one of our big traditional manufacturing sectors. There's a lot of value addition there in terms of plyboard being made already. Where it overlaps is that we have received a lot of support from international agencies such as the EU, and they have ensured that Guyana is one of the only one of the only countries with what you call VPA, Voluntary Partnership Agreement with the EU. This allows our forests to continue to be really well managed, a well-managed forest, for the lack of better terms. Why is this useful? To export to certain markets, as you know, we live in a very ESG world. To export to certain markets, you have to have this compliance as a country. Guyana being one of the only countries with this well-managed forestry sector allows us to export timber and lumber. That is one. And two, it allows us to do wood-based manufacturing right here as one of the only few countries, again, who has this VPA to export to Europe and, again, other markets. But we should not just look internationally. As you know, we have a ongoing housing drive. We have an ongoing construction boom. There's a lot of wood being used in this sector. It's fueled by growth. As I mentioned earlier, if you follow the sectors that are growing, there's always some type of manufacturing input or product being used in it. So I hope I answered your question, Ron. And Also, there is a lot of supporting mechanism for this sector specifically. I would say between wood and agriculture, these are the two most supported sectors with a lot of training and capacity building programs, with a lot of institutions offering vertical support and a whole host of other measures that I can list if you like.
Yes, I thank you, Govindra. You set the context for my my follow-up question. So if I may, and Nikeshia, if I ask him too much questions, please stop me, eh? Because my next question is for Trevor. Mr. Bassoo, hi, Happy New Year. We've met a couple of times, but my question is specific to all my questions will be specific to the wood sector. As it relates from your purview at the GNBS, do you guys or have you guys worked with wood-based manufacturers during the course of your work? And what standards specifically would you recommend them getting?
Connect. So good question. So GNBS, a couple of things here. One is that with respect to product compliance and monitoring first, the only aspect of wood-based manufacture that we monitor is furniture. Furniture manufacturers are required to register with us, and actually they're required to have a permit to sell. So those products are inspected before they're made available to for sale. So we monitor any other aspect of wood. I guess it will fall under the Forestry Commission. But with respect to standards, yes, GNBS is the standards authority and custodian of all standards, including those for wood. If you visit the website or the portal that was just shared on screen earlier, there are a number of standards there that are relevant to wood and wood products. I'll just maybe call two or three just for listening's sake. There's the code of practice for the grading of hardwoods. There is also the code of practice for manufacture of wooden craft items. There is the requirements for the Guyana legality assurance system, which is relevant to wood, specification for wooden furniture, and a number of other standards that are available there. So those standards, as some of you will know, they are either adopted or developed based on requests by you, the stakeholders, those of you who are affected by the manufacture of or the import-export of those products. And you see your desire, you recognize the need for there to be some standards in place so there's level playing field, there's consistency, improve your competitiveness. We will facilitate those standard development.
Thank you, Trevor. That answers it completely, and I will be looking at your website a lot more clearly. I must be presumptuous to ask if you could re-drop it back in the chat. I did see you put it in earlier, but I can't seem to find it now.
I will definitely put both the standard portal and the GNBS website into the chat.
Thank you. Nikeshia, am I out of bounds yet?
You have one more question.
Save the best for last then. John, good afternoon. Happy New Year. I just
Happy
wanted
New Year.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask, as it relates to wood again, all I'm doing is wood. From the
The
GoInvest,
accelerator.
yes, and I would speak to this after
Okay.
I answer this question. Do we have any data? Because I think it was Cleveland speaking on data too, as it relates to the biggest foreign market for wood and wood-based value-add products from Guyana, and where is the interest from the GoInvest perspective? Which countries, which types of buyers? Who looks to Guyana for wood?
The main buyers, and I think either Govindra or no, I certainly think it's Govindra that alluded to it. The main market is the European market. If you spend just a little bit of time with Mr. Rafiq Khan, who is the current president of the GMSA, you would absorb quite a lot of information, and his presentations usually have a lot of detail on those export markets. Of which I can share some of those information with you. And I think I would have shared that with the consultant team when I met them as well some time ago. But let me use the opportunity to also answer a question that I saw in the chat. So broadly speaking, we do look at the European market as being one of our main targets for the wood sector and the forestry sector. And that's why we have worked, and we're working more extensively now to gain more accreditation for our forest products as well as our value-added wood. But we're also looking at other areas close by, especially in the Caribbean region, where we can benefit from some stronger logistics chains, and that has been, of course, a major detriment to our export market strategy. But there's also a question, because you alluded to it as well, from Grace in the chat, where she asked where can, or was it someone else, about data? I think someone has asked about data.
Yeah, one of the
Maybe
biggest
Cleveland.
challenges investors face is access to data. Where do they start in getting access to clear, concise, accurate data?
Sure. So it really involves understanding what particular market you're looking for and market data you're looking for, and then being able to source it from those particular sources. One of the things that I will typically tell persons to do, especially when they're looking at the government or government sources of information, the Bureau of Statistics have a lot of data. So we had a whole debate last week, a theoretical debate about Guyana's unemployment numbers, and simply put, and also there was talk about the whole poverty rate in Guyana and so forth. But simply put, the Bureau of Statistics has their labor force Q4 survey of 2024 that clearly speaks to employment data. But the Bureau of Statistics doesn't just provide information on labor. They have various sectoral profiles that persons can tap into. Govindra alluded to it earlier. In terms of our import data, the Bureau of Statistics will also provide by commodities what are some of the major imports into Guyana. If you would like to operate a manufacturing basis that looks at operating on competitor switching, meaning that you are looking to replace what Guyanese would otherwise have to import, that is a good mechanism to utilize. The Bureau of Statistics has a lot of data. And then the government's budget document, the volume 2 in particular, that looks at indicative and various quantitative figures and measurements, would show prior year targets and achievements, as well as it would show the current year targets. So right now you can go on that volume 2, it's found on the Ministry of Finance website, and you can literally find how many, and I use this example with my staff just Monday, but there is a target set from the Ministry of Home Affairs of how many jailbreaks that they would like to have in Guyana in 2026. And of course, the number is 0, and they would also show you how much jailbreaks we had in 2025, which of course that number is 0. But if you look at the Ministry of Natural Resources, you find the Guyana Forestry Commission, you can also find various pieces of information that is directly targeted that the various ministries will have to put out. The Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Commerce, of which Small Business Bureau and the GNBS are located, they would have how many businesses they want to help with meeting Guyana mark, or help with training, or help with funding. So you could find yourself as part of those achievements that they'd like to achieve. Our office would show how much investments we like to facilitate. And you can find various pieces of information therein. And there are 20 plus sectoral ministries that have to report on those various numbers. And there's a lot of data found there. One of the things that I pointed, and I'll go back to Ron's question, the consultants who worked on the program initially, is that the government has set aside money for furniture and equipment. And there's also a whole program for the construction of 40,000 homes. So looking at just the government as one of the largest purchasers or largest purchaser in the country, you can then disaggregate what is the government's allocation for furniture and equipment, and then use that as a mechanism for your whole furniture market assessment, because the government as a singular purchaser will have to buy X amount of furniture. So you can even estimate market demand looking at the single largest purchaser as well. But that's a few sources. The Revenue Authority has many sources of information. And then, of course, when you're looking at various market tools, the International Trade Council has a lot of good information. And I would have shared that information with Govindra, I think, a long time ago. And that information should be with the GMSA as well, in terms of the trade tools and understanding how to access various markets. But it does involve a lot of work. There is no one-size-fit-all approach, unfortunately, and that's why consultants do very well, because they have mastered the art of being able to consolidate various sources of information. But you do have to build up an appetite to understand where to look for various things and to be able to build out your network to be able to find the right sources of information. There's no one um, database, and it does not exist even in the developed world. So don't think of it as Guyana being backward. You cannot go to the United States and go on one single platform and find all pieces of information on how to do business or what is all the database. It does not exist. It's not a real thing. Even if you want to check artificial intelligence, it does not exist there as well. So it is about being able to keep up to date with all of the various reports that are being issued from various reputable bodies. In our case, the main body responsible for putting out statistical data is the Guyana Bureau of Statistics. And I would encourage more persons to read their reports. They put out quarterly reports. The Bank of Guyana would also issue reports, and they would talk about investment data as well as how we are utilizing our money supply and so forth. And of course, understanding some of the jargon as you read them becomes a little easier. Sometimes they're not very nice documents to read and consume, but as you continue to absorb those pieces of information, they tend to become more palatable, as I put it.
I want to emphasize some points too. John really captured these two questions in the chat comprehensively, but there is no single data source. You can look at Bureau of Statistics information. You can look at some reports that the GMSA has done, whether it's our annual report, or our Manufacturers Digest. You can even look at, again, GoInvest websites, but these will only give you macro ideas, because these sectors that we all use as growing are basically either, again, looking at the imports that are high and we can substitute them. We're looking at what we're consuming more locally in terms of growing demand, or we look at policy. Again, if the government is invested in agriculture and the, let's say, fresh produce sector, obviously there are opportunities there, but it is down upon the business to say, within agriculture, if I want to grow mangoes or use a shade house, you on your own may have to disaggregate that and do the relevant cost benefit analysis, feasibility studies, business plans. But again, this is where you are not usually on your own. There are a lot of agencies that can support you in this. I'm sure SPP, the GMSA, at least I know, we use the ITC tools that John alluded to, and we also help our members as they reach out to us with guidance here as required. So you have to get the big pictures, but then you have to narrow into what specific opportunity in this sector you want to look at. I will, though, to not leave this open, the FAO, an organization named IICA, they have done some really good studies on the feasibility of a few agro-processed initiatives across the region that you can look at, and you'll have to use the experience of Guyana in for as necessary. There are a few other studies that are being done relating to furniture study and the profitability of it, but those are not in the public domain as yet. But the two sources I mentioned, FAO, IDB, and ICA, that's a good start to maybe have some specific figures that you might be looking for.
All right. I think we were able to answer Cleavon and Marissa's questions with regards to finding how do we find data and the list of growing sectors. Grace Paris asks, where could I get information on the pros and cons of moving from sole trading to a company? Britnee, I don't know if you want to tackle this question.
All right, could you repeat the question for me, please?
Yeah, sure. She's asking where she can get information on the pros and cons of moving from a sole trading to a company.
All right, so just to echo one of the sentiments earlier from the other panelists was talked about doing research. The reality is that moving from a sole trader to a company, the structure for compliance is different. The tax rates are different. What is required for a sole trader would be different from what is required for a company. Why are you moving from sole trader to a company? First, you need to ascertain the reason and then ascertain the cost, because then if you do the company, then you have articles of incorporation. It's a whole different process, legal process to register a company. So before you transition, is your business at a stage? Is this just a desire? Is this something you want to do? Is it a goal? If it is a goal, I would suggest start researching on the Bees and Commercial Registry website. There is information how the documents required to register a company. On the GRA, you can contact GRA for the tax structure for companies. But my advice in concerning moving from sole trader straight to companies to first ascertain the reason that you're doing so. Because again, there are benefits from moving from sole trader to a company, but also the costs would be different.
Thank you, Britnee. Marissa's asking, and I want to direct this to Mark, would you encourage someone who has no experience in manufacturing to start, or do they need that passion first?
First, as you have to do your research. You don't want to go and do
Okay.
something that you're going to waste your money. Do your research, see what the demands are, ensure that, let's say, Marissa have a idea of doing soursop juice. Ensure you have a supplier that can supply you throughout the year, all the time, because those things are seasonal. So whatever your passion is, yes, it's good to have a passion, but you need to understand that it have to be something constant going all the time. So yeah.
All right. If we don't have any other questions, do we have any other questions? I don't see any more in the chat. You can
I saw
always,
someone's hands raised earlier. Don't know if they still have a question. I think it was,
Yeah, it was
yeah,
Delon.
someone.
Delon. Yes.
Hi, good day. Question. I'm not sure who would be better able to answer it. It is pertaining to the categorization of items that is manufactured in Guyana. Very often, I'm in aquaculture, and often when I bring in equipment, it is often a back and forth between me and the customer officer because of the equipment and what I say it is, and they have no idea what it is. So I'm considering start making the equipment in Guyana because Ghana have been pushing greatly for development of aquaculture in Ghana. It would save me and would save individual trying to get into the sector. But the question pertaining to looking to export, I'm guessing that if I decide to reach to a point where to export, it would be have the same challenge in terms of what the item is, in terms of the identification or categorize. If you understand my question.
John, would you like to tackle this one?
I'll do my best. Dylan, are you referring to the materials that you want to manufacture? So I assume when you talk about aquaponics, you're talking about the ponds, the various
Well,
filters,
yes,
the pumps.
especially the filters and whatnot. Very often they try to classify them as electrical components, but they are.
So is it that so before I answer the full question, is it that the items are coming not as one component? So it would seem as though it is just an electrical piece of item and it doesn't necessarily come as part of a full component, so that the purpose for which is intended is very clear.
It
That's
is
part
fully
of my question.
it is fully assembled, but the filter how it's designed, it do have some electrical component that is visible, right? So with that, it could easily be mistaken for something that some industrial electrical equipment that goes into like a power station or something like that, or a makeshift power plant or thing. So it's often issue with me and them.
Right. I mean, I don't want to speak on behalf of the Revenue Authority, since I have, and not ironically, I don't have any authority to speak on behalf of them, but I do have frequent and often communication with the tax exemption department. But it would be, again, like I advise when I talked about some of the pitfalls, that before the items arrive, it is good to have those communications. Similar to what would need to be done with my office, it would be good for those types of, or even if the supplier who would typically sell you could make some clearer notes, and if that would assuage the difficulty at the customs office. I can't seem to be sure of that. And then as it relates to exporting, could you kindly just clarify that part? When you're exporting, what was the question relating to that part?
As aquaculture developed in Guyana, Guyana is trying to position itself as the major aquaculture hub in this region,
Yes.
right? So sooner or later, it's going to be more cost effective to buy equipment that is produced here than China or whatnot. So I'm wondering if like this manufacturing association is going to basically be the middleman between businesses like mines that isn't really categorized in terms of what we're producing to reach the market, or be the middleman that how much I say break the bar between us and GRE. So this is basically it what I'm
All
asking.
right. So the export portion of an export, the export taxes are very different to the import the import component. So you would have a different regime that you would have to operate on. You would have to have a license to import from the country that, or whoever is importing and buying your items have to have the requisite import license, and then you would be more or less paying that person, whoever is buying the item. Let's say they're buying it from St. Lucia, and again, I'm hoping I get your question correctly. Let's say the person's buying your aquaponic setup that you've manufactured in country in Guyana. They would have to pay the applicable taxes, import taxes from St. Lucia for the importation of those items. If they have taxes, then it would be calculated on that particular basis. If not, it would not be an additional tax burden from Guyana going out, right? It would be the import taxes for that particular country, depending on what is in our Treaty of Chaguaramas, if it's in the Caribbean, and for that particular component. But those are things we have to look at very specifically, and how it would be even classified in our tax code. All right, but that is a question that we would have to have some input of the Revenue Authority for us to clarify in full.
And
John,
Govind,
if I may weigh in on this one quickly, to add to what you have already said, and looking at two different aspects here. When we talk about importation of this item, from what I'm hearing, that item seems to be classified as, or can be classified as, an electrical equipment or fitting. And if that is the case, I'm surprised if you haven't already, that item would have been flagged for GNBS to inspect and release it, because that's a usual requirement for electrical equipment and fittings that are imported into the country. So you should take that into account. Now, another thing to consider there is how your custom broker is classifying the item for importation. That will play a role on the amount of trouble, as you call it, that you may get when having to clear the item. So there, as you know, there's special codes that each item has to fall under, and if it's incorrectly classified, then you will experience some challenges in clearing the item. So apart from if it's electrical equipment, if it didn't have it registered with GNBS, so we can give clearance on the item for one, and then secondly, the custom broker classifying it correctly. Talking about the other aspect, export, and I love when I hear these people forward thinking, he's going beyond Guyana market now, crossing boundaries and borders. One thing that you will have to consider is technical barriers to trade. For each country, and let's presume you're dealing with the CARICOM region, each CARICOM member state is likely to have either a national standard or regulation which speaks about what is approved for entry, or the quality of the product, or the specifications of the particular product that will allow entrance into the country. Or in some cases, there will be regional standards, which are standards that are accepted by all of the CARICOM member states. And if your product meets those standards, then you get then your product is accepted into those member states. You'd have to take that into consideration. Export is not that simple. It varies from market to market, and each territory has in many cases, has their own requirements. So you may prefab or manufacture this item for the Trinidad market, and while they accept it, the Jamaican market, and I'm speaking hypothetically here, the Jamaican market may not accept with those specifications. So you'd have to know what are the requirements for each of those markets.
Thank you very much.
I want to add something to Delon. When going to export, just as when you're going to start a business, you do a business plan. There's a concept of an export plan, right? And it involves looking and understanding at the market you're going to, as Trevor rightly said. GMSA is part of a network called the Caribbean Manufacturers Association. This includes Trinidad, this includes Barbados, Jamaica, the MDCs, and a few of the other less developed countries. So from that alone, we are able to save you some of the groundwork in terms of you trying to establish connection in terms of what are the requirements in these markets. We're able to bridge that little knowledge gap for you should you want to find out about, let's say, Trinidad or Barbados. So there's something that can be tapped into if you're thinking outward like that, which is excellent because Guyana, to become an industrial hub, everyone needs to think outward, not just for local markets, but outward. And this is something we're happy to facilitate. In fact, a lot of our work plan this year is on understanding and guiding businesses to tap into some of these markets. And maybe about 2 webinars or 3 webinars from now, that is going to be something we're touching on as well. So stay in the loop, keep following our pages, and keep up what you're doing with the vision.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys, and thank you, Dalon, for that question. We are now a bit over our scheduled end time, so this is where I want to close this conversation for now. I want to say thank you to our panelists for sharing such valuable insights. Really appreciate them. I learned a lot today. I know the attendees would have learned something as well. And to our participants, today's discussion, it pretty much highlighted 3 key things. Of course, plan, do your research, and engage with the right agencies, GMSA, GNBS, SBB, GoInvest. Talk to other entrepreneurs to get yourself prepared before you enter into this manufacturing sector. We are all here to support you, but you need to be prepared. We encourage you guys to stay connected with GMSA, follow our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn for future webinars, resources, and engagement opportunities. And thank you all for joining us. We wish you success in your manufacturing journey.
Thanks, Nikesha, and thanks everyone as well.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
All the best,
Bye.
everyone. Take care.
Same to you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Take care all.